Alcoholism, right? Do we want to talk about that for a minute? It seems like it's the appropriate time for whatever reason. I'm kind of talking about this, I am over a year sober. This is like the third or fourth relapse last time. But I'm in a best place of, just not knowing alcohol as a friend anymore. Don't go to bars or where I'm exposed to it for a long period of time. That's cool because I've already chilled out anyway. But, I realized I had a problem in late 2014. And then I got all that, tried all those dozens of medications to treat my depression. And even a couple antipsychotics that made me gain a hell of weight. I'm just grateful for the stability I, achieved, because it almost seems so simple to figure out what it is. Well, we're not that far in psychiatric medicine, either deliberately or not. So 20s were a bad time, but I don't know, just all the factors of being that age and all the factors, like I could go on forever, trauma, etc. Men, women too, but especially those with bipolar and mental illness. More than half of us end up having a substance abuse problem. And when it starts, you don't know anything about it. All you know is you like the way you kind of feel on it, and it seems harmless. I started with beers in my dad's fridge, when I was 15 or so. Hung out with these girls that I genuinely did not like, so those are one of the mistakes or whatever you make when you're still in high school. When now, if you've known that girls have been shit to you, you don't hang out with them anymore, right? There's no fixing that. So spent a lot of time in the rooms, a lot. But I was just stuck in such an emotional loop because, I learned so much about neuroscience over the years trying to crack the code on my depression. And, I know how the brain functions now. It explains a lot of why people do what they do. It doesn't necessarily mean that you necessarily always have the control of the, most effective ways to handle things. But, once it becomes a habit and part of your lifestyle, because my lifestyle didn't change like completely, but if I want to go out, I'll go to a kava bar, but I don't go often because it tastes like shit. I already have cannabis, so I'm set on the stress reliever, but also my medicine. I could definitely not do this alone. A lot of my past has been so dramatic because of bipolar, probably, but I don't regret it because at least it wasn't boring as shit. Like, literally, I could write a memoir about my life. It's been so dysfunctional and painful, having mental illness. Like, I don't know. Everybody has a different fucking experience. And it's hard because you don't want to trauma bond either. Like, my baggage is like carry on now. So if a guy has like you know, check-in baggage, and then I'm pretty out. I mean, I still have such. Why am I still single? Because I've wanted something the entire time. I've wanted love, and I was looking for love in all the wrong places. And this is even through, periods of sobriety. But relapse onto addiction, I'll tell you, really has something to do with being as isolated as possible. Support system not working. That's the last resort. It's like, if death is 0, relapsing is 2, because their feelings and their emotions can't handle it. Especially with past trauma. Trauma stays in the body unless you do intensive therapeutic work. You need to see that therapist often, but you also, what happened with me is I was looking for another therapist, and when I talked to this one therapist, she sounded real sweet and dainty and whatever, and I was so used to having like kind of stern therapists, but never got through to me, even though they were, they're right, but didn't have that kind of like empathic connection. So I've been seeing Celeste for maybe 2 years or something, and I don't think I'll ever leave her, no matter what, because she makes me feel more validated than really anybody else, and my dad too. So Celeste, my therapist, Dad and Shannon, I think, are my number 3. Besides Dad, my number 3 outside of importance to me. Yes, I definitely prioritize relatives. I don't think any of us can lie about that. I needed AA, I needed a lot of time there. I read the entire book, and I know all the, principles, and kind of the singleness of purpose, even though nobody wants to talk about that being the actual thing, because we ended up getting NA people, and we wanted to accept them because they'd have a better kind of, meeting style, not beat around the bush, because NA meetings are sketch and don't seem honest at all. But I understand why. But now alcohol is not in my life, because alcohol was the, kind of the gate that held up, the levee that held up every other bad decision, especially hypomania and hyposexuality. It's crazy. It's crazy how many kind of lifestyles I have chosen in my life, so many. And the common denominator just seems to be what everybody's going through, which is ghosting. But I'm okay with it now. It doesn't make me feel that anymore. I just accept it as they didn't want to. And I'm also trying to get to know guys online a little bit longer before meeting up, even though I used to have the philosophy that I should, because it's all about chemistry, and then why waste your time? So I may speed it up a little bit with the dude I'm talking to, get some answers. But alcohol is poison. It destroys you apart, destroys every part. It is, people that can imbibe and control it, nope, I have no, judgments about that. But it is very kind of ass backwards that it's so around, and yet, at least in Florida, which is a medically legal state, we don't have any places to hang out like in Amsterdam to just smoke our cannabis and socialize, I'd like to meet new people, and especially ones that aren't sketch. I never really got to I never really got to share my story except one time, which was like an impromptu at AA. I just kind of still felt alone there. Met a few girls that just ended up using me, but now with all the work that I've done, especially with bibliotherapy, reading so many books and audiobooks and, just being an annoying philosopher, and also the scientific stuff too, but just, bipolar. Whoopsie. Bipolar is when it's either hypomanic or just unmedicated. Bipolar is basically just your prefrontal cortex shutting down, and that's where all the rationality is, and etc., other things, but most importantly rationality. The prefrontal cortex, which is right in front of, it's right on your, forehead behind there. That was the last thing to evolve. And, that's why children, you can't really rationalize with them that much because their prefrontal cortex is still growing. So just think of it like the addict, too. No matter how old the addict is, 36 or whatever, the age they started their addiction without knowing what was happening or what would come to be as their coping mechanism, because it worked, and it's survival, dude. They have anxiety attacks. Like, it's not just like, oh, I just want to feel better. It's like extreme, especially for different ones. But thankfully I couldn't afford very much, but it was a lonely ride. It feels much better being out of there, but it was my time. It's what I had to do with the time, and I did the best I could with the resources I had and the people around me. So I don't know if I could talk like this if I wasn't medicated correctly. But now that I am, I have a lot more clarity. I'm not just acting, like, not every single thing is an emotional affair like it is. Like all the action going in the amygdala only. That's like your fight or fright. That's why you're always tense and like defensive. And I was called sensitive, defensive, stubborn, weird. You're not like them my whole life. So if anybody else felt that way, bro, I got you. Because I'm an old soul. And I got picked on for being a caring person. I read Care Bears when I was little. That's my nickname. And you know what? I'm never gonna get rid of who I am, because I like being good people.